The blood on her dress was the first thing Everett Cole noticed when he found her collapsed behind the livery stable in Kelton, Utah, on a blistering August afternoon in 1882. He had been leading his horse around the side of the building, intending to check on a loose board he had spotted earlier that morning, when he saw the crumpled form of a woman lying face down in the dirt, her dark hair spilling across the ground like ink. Everett dropped the reins and rushed to her side, his boots kicking up dust as he knelt beside her. When he carefully turned her over, he saw a face so bruised and swollen that he barely recognized her as human at first. One eye was completely closed, the flesh around it purple and angry. Her lip was split, crusted with dried blood, and there were finger-shaped marks on her throat that made his stomach turn with rage. "Miss, can you hear me?" he asked, his voice gentle despite the fury building in his chest. She did not respond, but he could see the shallow rise and fall of her chest, confirming she was still breathing. He needed to get her help, and fast. Everett slid his arms beneath her as gently as he could, preparing to lift her, when she suddenly gasped and her eyes flew open. The one that was not swollen shut was a striking shade of green, now wide with terror. "No, please do not," she whispered, her voice hoarse and desperate. "He will find me." "Who did this to you?" Everett asked, keeping his voice calm and steady. "Who hurt you?" She tried to shake her head, but winced at the movement, her face contorting with pain. "My ribs," she managed to say, each word seeming to cost her. "I think they are broken." Everett felt his jaw tighten. Broken ribs meant serious damage, and from the look of her injuries, whoever had done this had meant to kill her. "I am going to get you to the doctor," he said firmly. "You need proper care, and you need it now." "He will kill me if he finds me," she whispered, tears beginning to stream down her battered face. "Please, just leave me here. Let me die in peace." "I am not letting anyone die today, least of all you," Everett said, his tone brooking no argument. "And whoever did this to you will have to go through me to get to you again. Now, I am going to lift you, and it is going to hurt, but I will be as gentle as I can. Do you understand?" She stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether she could trust him, then gave the smallest of nods. Everett took a deep breath and carefully slid his arms beneath her knees and shoulders, lifting her as smoothly as he could. Despite his best efforts, she cried out in pain, her body going rigid in his arms. I know, he murmured, holding her close to his chest as he stood. "We will get you help. Just hold on." The doctor's office was 3 buildings down from the livery stable, but the walk felt like miles with the woman trembling and whimpering in his arms. People stopped and stared as he passed, their expressions ranging from curiosity to concern, but Everett ignored them all. His focus was entirely on getting this woman to safety. Dr. Martin Hayes was a gruff man in his 60s who had seen more than his fair share of violence in his years on the frontier. When Everett burst through his door with the battered woman in his arms, he did not waste time with questions. He simply gestured to the examination table and began rolling up his sleeves. "Put her down there, gently now," Dr. Hayes instructed, pulling back the curtain that separated the examination area from the waiting room. "What happened to her?" "I found her behind the livery stable," Everett said, as he laid the woman down on the table. She whimpered again, her good hand clutching at his shirt sleeve. "She said her ribs are broken." Dr. Hayes leaned over the woman, his experienced eyes taking in the extent of her injuries. "Miss, I am Dr. Hayes. I need to examine you to see how badly you are hurt. Can you tell me your name?" The woman's green eye fixed on the doctor, then darted back to Everett, as if seeking reassurance. Everett gave her what he hoped was an encouraging nod. "Olivia," she whispered. "Olivia Vance." "All right, Miss Vance. I am going to need to cut away your dress to examine your ribs. This young man here will need to step outside for propriety's sake, but I will take good care of you." Olivia's grip on Everett's sleeve tightened. "Please do not leave," she said, her voice panicked. "What if he comes?" "Who are you afraid of?" Dr. Hayes asked, his tone gentling slightly. "Who did this to you?" Olivia's lips pressed together, and she shook her head slightly, then winced at the movement. "It does not matter. He will find me eventually." Everett felt that surge of protective anger again. "I will be right outside the door," he promised her. "No one is getting past me to hurt you again. You have my word." Something in his tone must have convinced her, because she slowly released his sleeve and nodded. Everett stepped outside and took up a position right beside the door, his arms crossed over his chest. He was a tall man, standing just over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and strong arms built from years of ranch work. His light brown hair was perpetually sun-bleached, and his hazel eyes had a way of seeing through lies. Right now, those eyes were hard as flint. Several townsfolk had gathered outside the doctor's office, their curiosity getting the better of them. Everett recognized most of them. There was Mrs. Patterson, the banker's wife, her round face creased with concern. Next to her stood Samuel Wright, who ran the general store, and behind them were a handful of other residents of Kelton, all whispering among themselves. "What happened, Everett?" Mrs. Patterson asked, stepping forward. "Who is that poor girl?" "Her name is Olivia Vance," Everett said, keeping his voice low, "and someone beat her within an inch of her life. Did any of you see or hear anything unusual today?" The crowd exchanged glances, but no one spoke up. Everett felt his frustration growing. This was a small town, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business. Someone had to have seen or heard something. "She said someone might come looking for her," Everett pressed. "A man who hurt her. If any of you see someone asking about her, you come find me immediately. Understood?" The townspeople nodded, their expressions grave, then slowly dispersed, though Everett could hear them continuing to talk in hushed tones as they walked away. He turned his attention back to the door, straining to hear what was happening inside. He could make out the murmur of Dr. Hayes's voice, calm and professional, and occasionally a soft cry of pain from Olivia. Each sound made his hands clench into fists. He had seen plenty of violence in his 30 years of life. He had fought in the last years of the Civil War as a young man, had dealt with rustlers and outlaws during his time, working various ranches across the West. But there was something particularly cowardly and cruel about a man who would beat a woman like this. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 20 minutes, the door opened and Dr. Hayes stepped out, wiping his hands on a cloth. His expression was grim. "How is she?" Everett asked immediately. 3 broken ribs, extensive bruising to her torso, face, and arms, and I suspect a mild concussion, Dr. Hayes said, his voice low so that only Everett could hear. "The ribs are the main concern. One of them came dangerously close to puncturing a lung. She is very lucky to be alive." "Can you tell how long ago this happened?" "Based on the bruising, I would say sometime yesterday evening, or early this morning. Whoever did this worked her over thoroughly." Dr. Hayes paused, his jaw working. This was not a momentary loss of temper, Cole. This was deliberate, sustained violence. Everett felt that cold fury settle deeper into his bones. What does she need? Rest, primarily, and careful monitoring to make sure none of those ribs shift and cause internal damage. She should not be moved any more than absolutely necessary for the next several weeks. I have bound her ribs, but there is only so much I can do. Time and rest are the only real cures for what ails her. "Can I see her?" Dr. Hayes nodded. "She has been asking for you, but Cole, she is terrified. Whatever you can do to help her feel safe, do it. Fear and stress will only slow her healing." Everett entered the examination room to find Olivia lying on the table, now covered with a clean sheet up to her shoulders. Someone had washed the blood from her face, revealing the full extent of the bruising. She looked small and fragile, nothing like the strong frontier women Everett was used to seeing around Kelton. "Miss Vance," he said quietly, approaching the table, "Dr. Hayes says you are going to be all right, but you need rest." "I have nowhere to go," she whispered, her green eye tracking him as he moved closer. "I have no money, nothing. I used everything I had just to get to Kelton." "Where did you come from?" She hesitated, then said, "Ogden. I was living there with my husband." The word husband hit Everett like a physical blow. He should have known. A woman does not end up beaten like this without a man in the picture, and more often than not, it was the man who was supposed to protect her who did the damage. "Your husband did this to you," Everett said. It was not a question. Olivia's eye filled with tears again. "Clarence Vance. We have been married for 2 years. It started small, just angry words and the occasional shove, but it got worse over time. Last night, I told him I wanted to leave, and he went into a rage. He beat me for hours. I thought he was going to kill me." Her voice broke on the last words. "How did you get away?" "He finally passed out from drink. I took what little money I could find and ran. I caught a freight train heading south and ended up here. I did not know where else to go. I thought maybe I could disappear in a small town, find work, start over. Everett pulled up a chair and sat down beside the table, his mind racing. Does he know you came to Kelton? I do not think so. But Clarence is not stupid. He knows the train routes. It is only a matter of time before he figures out where I went. Then we will deal with him when he comes, Everett said firmly. Right now, we need to focus on getting you well. Dr. Hayes says you need several weeks of rest and care. I have a room at the boarding house here in town. You can stay there, and I will find somewhere else to sleep. I cannot ask you to do that, Olivia protested weakly. You do not even know me. You did not ask. I am offering, Everett said, and I cannot in good conscience leave you without protection and care after finding you the way I did. So, unless you have a better idea, you are going to accept my help. Olivia stared at him for a long moment, and Everett could see the war playing out behind her eyes. Pride versus practicality, fear versus hope. Finally, she nodded, and a single tear tracked down her bruised cheek. Thank you, she whispered. I do not understand why you are helping me, but thank you. Because it is the right thing to do, Everett said simply. Now rest. I am going to go make arrangements. He stood and left the examination room, finding Dr. Hayes in his small office, making notes in a ledger. The doctor looked up as Everett entered. I am going to take her to my room at the boarding house, Everett said. Can she be moved that far? If you are very careful, yes. But Cole, are you certain about this? You are taking on a significant responsibility, and if her husband does come looking for her, you could be putting yourself in danger. I can handle myself, Everett said, and that woman in there has been through enough. She deserves a chance to heal without looking over her shoulder every moment. Dr. Hayes studied him for a moment, then nodded. You are a good man, Everett Cole. Your father would have been proud. The mention of his father, who had died 5 years ago from a sudden illness, sent a pang through Everett's chest, but he pushed it aside. There was work to be done. The boarding house where Everett had been staying for the past 3 months was run by a widow named Mrs. Eleanor Perkins. She was a practical woman in her 50s who did not tolerate nonsense, but had a kind heart beneath her no-nonsense exterior. When Everett explained the situation to her, she immediately agreed to let Olivia take his room while he moved to a smaller room on the first floor. That poor girl, Mrs. Perkins said, shaking her head. I have some broth on the stove. I will bring it up once you get her settled. She will need good food to help her heal. With Mrs. Perkins' help, Everett managed to move his few belongings to the smaller room, then returned to the doctor's office. Dr. Hayes had given Olivia a small dose of laudanum for the pain, and she was drowsy but awake when Everett came back for her. I am going to carry you again, he told her gently. I will go as slowly as I can. She nodded, and he carefully lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, and he wondered when she had last had a proper meal. The walk to the boarding house was slow and careful, and by the time they arrived, Olivia's face was pale and tight with pain, despite the laudanum. Mrs. Perkins had already prepared the room, turning down the bed and opening the window to let in fresh air. Everett laid Olivia down on the bed as gently as he could, and Mrs. Perkins immediately bustled over with extra pillows to help prop her up. Dr. Hayes said she should not lie flat with those broken ribs, Mrs. Perkins explained as she arranged the pillows. This will help her breathe easier. Once Olivia was settled, Mrs. Perkins brought up a bowl of beef broth and some soft bread. Olivia managed a few spoonfuls before exhaustion overtook her, and she drifted off to sleep. Everett stood by the window, watching her sleep, his mind churning. He had not been lying when he told her he could handle himself. He had been in more than his share of fights and had the scars to prove it. But taking on the responsibility of protecting Olivia Vance was not something he had planned when he woke up this morning. Still, looking at her battered face, he knew he had made the right choice. No one deserved to suffer the way she had, and if her husband did come looking for her, Everett would be ready. Over the next few days, Everett fell into a routine. He would check on Olivia first thing in the morning, then head to his job at the cattle ranch just outside of town, where he worked as a foreman. The owner, a man named Jacob Harrison, was understanding when Everett explained that he needed to be able to come back to town at midday to check on someone who was injured. Everett had been with the ranch for 3 months and had proven himself to be a hard worker and good with the men, so Jacob did not argue. At noon each day, Everett would ride back into Kelton, bring Olivia lunch from the boarding house kitchen, and sit with her while she ate. She was slowly regaining her strength, though the bruises on her face had turned spectacular shades of purple, yellow, and green. Dr. Hayes came by every other day to check on her ribs and change the binding. During those midday visits, Everett and Olivia began to talk. At first, their conversations were surface level, comments about the weather, the food, how she was feeling, but gradually, Olivia began to open up about her life. She had grown up in a small town in Pennsylvania, the daughter of a school teacher and a seamstress. When she was 20, a charming young man named Clarence Vance had come to town, claiming to be a businessman looking to invest in the local mining operation. He had courted Olivia with flowers and pretty words, and she had fallen for him. They married after 6 months, and Clarence convinced her to move west with him to Utah, where he said he had opportunities waiting. "I was so naive," Olivia said one afternoon, staring out the window at the dusty street below. "I believed every word he said. It was not until we got to Ogden that I realized he was not a businessman at all. He gambled, drank, and when he lost, which was often, he took his anger out on me." "Why did you stay?" Everett asked gently. He was sitting in the chair beside the bed, his hat resting on his knee. "Where would I have gone? I had no money, no family out here, and Clarence always apologized afterward, swore he would change. I kept believing him, thinking that if I just tried harder to be a better wife, he would stop." She turned to look at Everett, her green eyes clear, now that the swelling around her eye had finally gone down. "It took him nearly killing me to realize he was never going to change." "You did the right thing by leaving," Everett said. "That took more courage than most people have." "I do not feel very courageous," Olivia admitted. "Mostly I feel terrified that he is going to find me." "If he does, he will have to go through me," Everett said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. Something shifted in Olivia's expression when he said that. She studied him for a long moment, and Everett felt an odd flutter in his chest under her gaze. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly. "You do not owe me anything. We are strangers." "Maybe that is why," Everett said. "Because I can. Because someone should. Because you deserve to be treated with kindness and respect, and it sounds like you have not had enough of either in your life." Olivia's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. "You are a good man, Everett Cole. I do not think I have ever met anyone quite like you." Everett felt his ears go hot, and he cleared his throat, suddenly uncomfortable with the praise. "I am just doing what any decent person would do." "No," Olivia said firmly. "You are not. Most people would have walked right past me, or turned me over to the law and let them deal with it. You took me in, gave me your room, and have been checking on me every day. That is not something most people would do, especially not for a stranger." Everett did not know what to say to that, so he simply nodded and changed the subject, asking if she needed anything from the general store. But as he rode back out to the ranch that afternoon, he could not stop thinking about the way Olivia had looked at him, or the warmth that had spread through his chest when she called him a good man. 2 weeks after Everett found Olivia behind the livery stable, she was finally able to sit up and walk short distances without too much pain. Dr. Hayes was pleased with her progress and said that as long as she continued to rest and avoided any strenuous activity, her ribs should heal without complications. Everett was checking on her one evening after work when Mrs. Perkins knocked on the door, her expression troubled. "Everett, there is a man downstairs asking about a woman matching Miss Vance's description," she said quietly. "Says he is her husband, and he is worried about her." Everett felt his blood turn to ice. He looked at Olivia and saw that all the color had drained from her face. Her hands were trembling as she clutched the blanket. "It is him," she whispered. "Clarence, he found me." "Stay here," Everett said, his voice hard. "Do not come downstairs no matter what you hear. Mrs. Perkins, lock this door behind me and do not open it for anyone but me or Dr. Hayes." Mrs. Perkins nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line. Everett gave Olivia what he hoped was a reassuring look, then headed downstairs, his heart pounding with a mixture of anger and anticipation. The man standing in the boarding house parlor was exactly what Everett had expected. Clarence Vance was average height, with a soft middle that spoke of too much time spent in saloons and not enough spent doing honest work. His face was flushed, either from anger or drink or both, and his small eyes were hard and calculating. "Can I help you?" Everett asked, keeping his voice neutral as he stepped into the parlor. Clarence looked him up and down, his lip curling slightly. "I am looking for my wife, Olivia Vance. I heard tell there was a woman fitting her description staying here. I have been searching for her for 2 weeks. worried sick that something might have happened to her. Worried, were you? Everett said, letting a hint of steel enter his voice. Is that why she has 3 broken ribs and bruises covering most of her body? Clarence's eyes narrowed. I do not know what she told you, but my wife is prone to exaggeration and dramatics. She fell down the stairs at our home in Ogden. I wanted to take her to the doctor, but she ran off before I could. I have been searching for her ever since, desperate to make sure she gets proper medical care. Is that so? Everett said flatly. Well, you can rest easy. She has been seeing a doctor here in Kelton, and he has been taking very good care of her. Good, good, Clarence said, though his expression remained hard. Then I will just collect her and be on our way. I appreciate you folks looking after her, but she belongs with her husband. She is not going anywhere with you, Everett said, crossing his arms over his chest. Clarence's face darkened. Now see here, you do not have any right to keep a man from his wife. That is against the law. Olivia is my property, and I want her back, now. Your property? Everett repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. Is that what you think? That your wife is something you own, something you can beat on whenever you feel like it? What goes on between a man and his wife is not your concern, Clarence snarled. Now, either you bring Olivia down here, or I am going to go get the sheriff and have you arrested for kidnapping. You go ahead and do that, Everett said. While you are at it, I will tell the sheriff about the condition Olivia was in when I found her. Let him decide who should be arrested. For a moment, Clarence looked genuinely taken aback, as if he had not expected anyone to stand up to him. Then his expression hardened again, and he took a step toward Everett. You have no idea who you are dealing with, Cowboy, he said, his voice low and threatening. I could make a lot of trouble for you and for Olivia. It would be much better for everyone if you just brought her down here and let us go on our way. The only trouble I see here is you, Everett said. And if you do not leave this boarding house right now, I am going to throw you out. Your choice. Clarence stared at him for a long moment, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. Everett could see the calculations happening behind the man's eyes, weighing his options. Finally, Clarence took a step back. This is not over, he said. Olivia is my wife, and I have every legal right to her. I will be back with the law, and when I am, you are going to regret interfering in my marriage. I will be here, Everett said calmly. Now get out. Clarence turned and stalked out of the boarding house, slamming the door behind him. Everett stood there for a moment, his heart still pounding, then headed back upstairs. Mrs. Perkins unlocked the door at his knock, and he found Olivia sitting on the edge of the bed, her face pale and her eyes wide with fear. Was it him? She asked, though she clearly already knew the answer. Yes, Everett said. But he is gone now. I told him you were not going anywhere with him. He is going to go to the sheriff, Olivia said, her voice shaking. Everett, the law is on his side. I am his wife. The sheriff will make me go back with him. Not if I have anything to say about it, Everett said grimly. Come on, we need to go see Sheriff Thompson before Clarence gets to him. With Mrs. Perkins' help, Everett got Olivia bundled up in a shawl and helped her downstairs. The walk to the sheriff's office was slow, with Olivia leaning heavily on Everett's arm, but they made it there just as the sun was setting. Sheriff David Thompson was a fair man in his late 40s who had been keeping the peace in Kelton for nearly a decade. He looked up from his desk as Everett and Olivia entered, his bushy eyebrows rising. Everett, he said, standing, I was just about to come looking for you. Had a man named Clarence Vance in here a few minutes ago, claiming you were holding his wife against her will. This is Olivia Vance, Everett said, guiding Olivia to a chair. And I am not holding her against her will. I am protecting her from a man who tried to kill her. Sheriff Thompson's expression grew serious as he took in Olivia's still visible bruises. Is this true, madam? Did your husband do that to you? Olivia nodded, her hands twisted in her lap. Yes, Sheriff. Clarence beat me 2 weeks ago. He broke 3 of my ribs. I thought he was going to kill me, so I ran. Everett found me collapsed behind the livery stable and got me to the doctor. He saved my life. Can Dr. Hayes confirm your injuries? The sheriff asked. He can, Everett said. He will tell you exactly what condition she was in when I brought her to him. Sheriff Thompson sighed and ran a hand through his graying hair. This is a difficult situation, he said. Legally, Mr. Vance is right. You are his wife, Mrs. Vance, and he does have a claim to you. However, if he assaulted you to the point of nearly killing you, that changes things. What can we do? Olivia asked, her voice small. I cannot go back with him, Sheriff. He will kill me if I do. Let me talk to Dr. Hayes and get his statement about your injuries, Sheriff Thompson said, and I will have a conversation with Mr. Vance. If the evidence supports your story, and I have no reason to believe it does not, I can at least make things difficult for him. But, Mrs. Vance, I have to be honest with you. The law is not always on the side of wives in these situations. Your husband could push this, and if he does, I may not be able to protect you. Olivia's face crumpled, and Everett felt his chest tighten with frustration and anger. It was not right that the law would side with a man like Clarence Vance, but he knew the sheriff was telling the truth. He had seen it happen before. Women forced back into marriages where they were abused and mistreated, all because the law said they belonged to their husbands. There has to be something we can do, Everett said. Sheriff Thompson studied him for a moment, then said carefully, There is one option, though it is not one I can officially suggest. If Mrs. Vance were to obtain a divorce from her husband, she would no longer be under his legal claim. However, divorces are expensive and difficult to obtain, especially for women. How expensive? Everett asked. Could be as much as $50 for the legal fees, maybe more, and she would need grounds, though from the sound of it, she has plenty. $50 was a significant sum, nearly 2 months' wages for Everett, but looking at Olivia's frightened face, he knew he would pay it without hesitation. I will cover the costs, Everett said. Whatever it takes to keep her safe from that man. Everett, no, Olivia protested. You have already done so much. I cannot ask you to pay for a divorce. That is too much. You are not asking, I am offering, Everett said firmly. Sheriff, what do we need to do? Sheriff Thompson leaned back in his chair, studying both of them with an unreadable expression. Finally, he said, There is a lawyer in Ogden who specializes in these types of cases. His name is Benjamin Wright. If anyone can help Mrs. Vance obtain a divorce, it would be him. But I warn you, this will not be easy or quick. Mr. Vance will fight it, and the process could take months. I do not care how long it takes, Everett said, as long as it means she is free of him. Sheriff Thompson nodded slowly. All right, I will write you a letter of introduction to Mr. Wright. In the meantime, I suggest Mrs. Vance stay out of sight as much as possible. If Mr. Vance does not know where she is, he cannot cause trouble. They left the sheriff's office as darkness was falling over Kelton. Olivia was quiet on the walk back to the boarding house, and Everett could sense the turmoil inside her. You do not have to do this, she said finally, as they reached the front steps. Pay for a divorce, I mean. You have already done so much for me. Olivia, look at me, Everett said, stopping and turning to face her. In the light spilling from the boarding house windows, her face was pale but determined. I am not going to let that man hurt you again. If paying for a divorce is what it takes to keep you safe, then that is what I am going to do. You do not owe me anything, and you do not need to feel guilty about accepting help. Just focus on getting well and staying safe. Let me worry about the rest. Olivia stared at him for a long moment, and Everett saw something shift in her expression. Then, to his surprise, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him in a careful hug, mindful of her still healing ribs. Thank you, she whispered against his chest. I do not know how I will ever repay you for everything you have done. Everett stood there, stunned, his arms hovering uncertainly before he gently returned the embrace. She fit perfectly against him, her head tucked under his chin, and he could smell the lavender soap Mrs. Perkins had given her. Something warm and unfamiliar bloomed in his chest, and for a moment he allowed himself to simply hold her. Then Olivia pulled back, her cheeks flushed, and they went inside without another word. The next morning, Everett rode to Ogden to meet with Benjamin Wright. The lawyer was a sharp-eyed man in his 30s who listened carefully as Everett explained the situation. After hearing the full story and examining the letter from Sheriff Thompson, Mr. Wright agreed to take the case. This will not be easy, Mr. Wright warned. Mr. Vance will argue that his wife is being manipulated or coerced into seeking a divorce. He will claim that the injuries were accidental or that she is lying. We will need Dr. Hayes to testify about the extent of her injuries, and we will need witnesses who can speak to Mr. Vance's character and behavior. Whatever you need, we will provide, Everett said. Just tell me what to do. Over the next several weeks, Benjamin Wright worked on building the case for Olivia's divorce. Dr. Hayes provided detailed medical records and agreed to testify. Sheriff Thompson tracked down people in Ogden who had witnessed Clarence's violent behavior including a bartender who had seen him hit Olivia in public on more than one occasion. The process was slow and frustrating, but gradually the case took shape. During this time, Everett and Olivia grew closer. Once Olivia was well enough to move around more freely, she began helping Mrs. Perkins with chores around the boarding house to earn her keep. Everett still came by at noon every day, and they would sit on the front porch and talk while eating lunch. Everett found himself looking forward to those midday visits more than anything else in his day. Olivia was intelligent and funny, with a sharp wit that had been buried under years of fear and abuse. As she healed, both physically and emotionally, that wit emerged more and more, and Everett found himself laughing more than he had in years. One particularly warm September afternoon, about 6 weeks after he had found her behind the livery stable, they were sitting on the porch when Olivia suddenly said, "Tell me about yourself, Everett. I have told you my whole sad story, but I barely know anything about you." Everett leaned back in his chair, considering. "Not much to tell, really. I grew up on a small ranch in Colorado. My father raised cattle, and I learned the trade from him. After he died, I sold the ranch and started working for other people, moving from place to place. I have been in Kelton for about 3 months now, working for Jacob Harrison out at his spread." "Do you like it here?" Olivia asked. "I do," Everett said, realizing as he said it that it was true. "Kelton is a good town, and the work is steady. I have been thinking about putting down roots here, maybe saving up to buy my own land someday." "That sounds like a good dream," Olivia said wistfully. "Having a place of your own, something that belongs to you and no one can take away." "What about you?" Everett asked. "What would you do if you could do anything?" Olivia was quiet for a moment, her eyes on the distant mountains. "I would want a home," she said finally. "Not just a house, but a real home where I felt safe and loved. I would want to grow a garden, maybe raise some chickens. Simple things, really, normal things." "Those are not small dreams," Everett said gently. "Those are good dreams." Olivia turned to look at him, and there was something in her eyes that made Everett's breath catch. "Do you think I will ever have that?" she asked. "Or will I always be running, always looking over my shoulder?" "You will have it," Everett said with conviction. "Once this divorce is final, you will be free to build whatever life you want, and you will never have to run again." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I will not let anything happen to you," Everett said. The words came out more intense than he had intended, and he saw Olivia's eyes widen slightly. "I mean, I will help you however I can. You have a whole town full of people who care about you now. You are not alone anymore." "I know," Olivia said softly, "and that is thanks to you." They sat in comfortable silence for a while longer, and Everett tried to ignore the fact that his heart was beating faster than normal. He was developing feelings for Olivia Vance, deep and complicated feelings that went far beyond simple protectiveness. But she was still married, still healing from years of abuse, and he had no right to burden her with his emotions. So he kept them to himself and focused on being her friend and protector. In late October, nearly 3 months after Everett had found Olivia, Benjamin Wright sent word that the divorce hearing had been scheduled for mid-November in the courthouse in Ogden. Clarence had fought the proceedings every step of the way, but the evidence against him was overwhelming, and the judge had agreed to hear the case. The news sent Olivia into a panic. "I cannot go back to Ogden," she said, pacing the small room in the boarding house. "What if Clarence tries to grab me? What if he hurts me again?" "You will not be alone," Everett assured her. "I will be with you the whole time, and so will Sheriff Thompson. Clarence will not get near you, I promise." The day of the hearing arrived cold and gray, with the smell of snow in the air. Everett, Olivia, and Sheriff Thompson made the trip to Ogden by train, arriving at the courthouse an hour before the hearing was scheduled to begin. Benjamin Wright met them at the entrance, his expression confident. "Everything is in order," he told them. Dr. Hayes sent his testimony in writing, along with photographs of Mrs. Vance's injuries. "We have 3 witnesses from Ogden who will testify to Mr. Vance's violent behavior. The judge will have no choice but to grant the divorce." Inside the courtroom, Everett took a seat directly behind Olivia, close enough that he could reach out and touch her shoulder if she needed reassurance. When Clarence entered with his own lawyer, Everett felt Olivia stiffen. He leaned forward and whispered, "You are safe. He cannot touch you here." The hearing lasted 3 hours. Benjamin Wright presented the evidence methodically and thoroughly, painting a clear picture of a man who had systematically abused his wife for years. The witnesses from Ogden testified about seeing Clarence hit Olivia, hearing her cries through the walls of their home, and watching her become more withdrawn and fearful over time. Dr. Hayes' testimony and the photographs of Olivia's injuries were particularly damning. Clarence's lawyer tried to argue that Olivia had been unfaithful and was seeking a divorce to be with another man, pointing at Everett. But Benjamin Wright shut that down quickly, pointing out that Everett had not even met Olivia until after she had fled from Clarence, and that his only involvement had been to provide medical care and protection for an injured woman. In the end, the judge, a stern-faced man in his 60s, looked directly at Clarence and said, "Mr. Vance, the evidence presented here today paints a picture of sustained and brutal violence against your wife. You are fortunate that you are not facing criminal charges for assault. I hereby grant Mrs. Vance's petition for divorce on the grounds of cruelty. This marriage is dissolved effective immediately." Everett heard Olivia let out a sob of relief, and he reached forward to squeeze her shoulder. Beside him, Sheriff Thompson nodded in satisfaction. But Clarence was not done. He stood up, his face red with fury, and pointed at Olivia. "This is not over," he shouted. "You ruined my life, you ungrateful wretch. You will pay for this." The judge banged his gavel. "Mr. Vance, you will restrain yourself, or I will hold you in contempt. Bailiff, escort Mr. Vance from the courtroom." As the bailiff moved toward Clarence, he tried to lunge toward Olivia, but Everett was faster. He stepped between them, his hand on the revolver at his hip, and Clarence pulled up short, his eyes widening. "You heard the judge," Everett said quietly, his voice deadly calm. "It is over. Now walk away while you still can." For a moment, it seemed like Clarence might try something foolish, but then the bailiff grabbed his arm, and he allowed himself to be led from the courtroom, though he continued to shout threats until the door closed behind him. Olivia turned to Everett, tears streaming down her face, and he pulled her into his arms without thinking. She clung to him, her body shaking with sobs, and he held her tightly, murmuring reassurances. "It is over," he said. "You are free. He can never hurt you again." They stayed in Ogden that night at a small hotel, with Sheriff Thompson keeping watch to make sure Clarence did not try anything. In the morning, they caught the train back to Kelton, and Olivia was quiet the whole way, staring out the window at the passing landscape. "Are you all right?" Everett asked finally. Olivia turned to look at him, and he was surprised to see that she was smiling, though tears still glistened in her eyes. "I am free," she said wonderingly. "After 2 years of hell, I am finally free. I still cannot quite believe it." "Believe it," Everett said, returning her smile. "You did it, Olivia. You got away, you survived, and you fought back. You should be proud of yourself." "I could not have done it without you," Olivia said. "You saved my life, Everett, not just physically, but in every way that matters. You showed me that not all men are like Clarence, that there are good people in the world who help others without expecting anything in return." Everett felt his chest tighten with emotion. "You do not have to thank me. I am just glad I found you when I did." Olivia reached out and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. It was a loaded question, and Everett knew it. What happened now depended on so many things. What Olivia wanted, what she was ready for, what he was brave enough to say. He looked down at their joined hands, feeling the warmth of her skin against his, and made a decision. "Now, you get to decide what you want your life to look like," he said. "You can stay in Kelton if you want. Mrs. Perkins has already said you are welcome to keep your room for as long as you need it. Or you can go somewhere new, start completely fresh. Whatever you choose, I will support you." "What if I want to stay in Kelton?" Olivia asked, her green eyes searching his face. "Then I would be glad of it," Everett admitted. "I have grown accustomed to having you around." Olivia smiled, a real smile that lit up her whole face. "I have grown accustomed to you too," she said. "More than accustomed, if I'm being honest." Everett's heart started to pound. "Olivia, let me say this," she interrupted gently. "I know it has not been very long, and I know I'm probably not ready for anything serious yet. But Everett, you have become so important to me. These past few months you have been my rock, my protector, my friend. And somewhere along the way, I started to have feelings for you, feelings that go beyond gratitude or friendship." "I feel the same way," Everett said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "I have been trying not to say anything because I did not want to pressure you or make you uncomfortable. But, Olivia, you are the most remarkable woman I have ever met. You are strong and brave and kind, and I have fallen for you. Completely." Olivia let out a watery laugh and squeezed his hand. "Then I suppose we are in quite a situation, are we not?" "I suppose we are," Everett agreed. "But Olivia, I mean what I said. I do not want to rush you into anything. You have been through so much, and you need time to heal and figure out who you are without Clarence. I can wait. I will wait as long as it takes." "You are too good to me," Olivia said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "But I think maybe waiting is exactly what we both need. Time to get to know each other properly without all the drama and fear. Time to just be together." "I can do that," Everett said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "I can absolutely do that." When they returned to Kelton, word of Olivia's successful divorce had already spread through the town. It seemed that Sheriff Thompson had sent a telegram ahead, and the residents of Kelton greeted Olivia with congratulations and expressions of support. It was clear that in the time she had been there, Olivia had become part of the community, and people genuinely cared about her well-being. Over the next few months, Everett and Olivia did exactly what they had agreed to do. They took their time. They continued to have lunch together every day, and on Sundays, when Everett was not working, they would go for walks around town or sit on the porch of the boarding house and talk for hours. They learned each other's quirks and habits, their likes and dislikes, their hopes and fears. Olivia took a job helping Mrs. Perkins run the boarding house, and she proved to have a natural talent for hospitality. She was excellent with the guests, always ready with a kind word or a helping hand. And the boarding house's reputation in town grew. Mrs. Perkins began to rely on her more and more, and Olivia thrived with the responsibility. Everett continued his work at the Harrison Ranch, but he also started saving money in earnest. He had a goal now, something concrete to work toward, and it drove him to take on extra work whenever he could. By the time spring rolled around in 1883, he had managed to save nearly $200, a significant sum. One warm evening in late April, Everett asked Olivia to take a walk with him. They strolled out of town to a small rise that overlooked the valley, where the setting sun painted everything in shades of gold and orange. "I have been thinking," Everett said, his hands shoved in his pockets. "About the future, I mean." "What about it?" Olivia asked, settling herself on a large rock and looking up at him expectantly. "I have saved enough money to put a down payment on a piece of land," Everett said. "There is a plot about 5 miles south of here, near the river, that is for sale. It is good land, fertile and well-watered. I could build a house there, start my own ranch." "That sounds wonderful," Olivia said, her face lighting up. "You have been working toward this for so long. I am so happy for you." "The thing is," Everett said, his heart pounding, "I do not want to do it alone. Olivia, we have been courting for months now, and every day I spend with you just confirms what I already knew. I love you. I love your strength, your kindness, your laugh. I love the way you hum while you work and the way you get this little crease between your eyebrows when you're concentrating. I love everything about you." Olivia stood up, her eyes wide. "Everett, wait, let me finish," he said, pulling his hands from his pockets. "I know you have been through hell with your marriage to Clarence. I know the idea of getting married again might terrify you, and if that is the case, I will wait. I will wait however long it takes until you are ready, or if you are never ready, I will accept that too. But, Olivia, I need you to know that I want to spend my life with you. I want to build a home with you, raise a family with you, grow old with you. So I am asking, will you marry me?" For a long moment, Olivia just stared at him, and Everett felt his heart sink. He had pushed too hard, moved too fast. She was not ready, and he had ruined everything. Then Olivia smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, Everett, I will marry you." Relief and joy flooded through Everett in equal measure, and he pulled her into his arms, spinning her around. She laughed, the sound bright and free, and when he set her down, he cupped her face in his hands. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I do not want you to feel pressured or rushed." "I am sure," Olivia said firmly. "Everett, you have shown me what real love looks like. You have been patient and kind and supportive, never demanding anything from me, always putting my needs first. You are nothing like Clarence, and I know with absolute certainty that marrying you will be the best decision I ever make. I love you, Everett Cole, and I want to be your wife." Everett kissed her then, pouring all of his love and hope and dreams for the future into that kiss. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathless and grinning like fools. "When do you want to get married?" Olivia asked. "As soon as possible," Everett said. "But whatever you want, it is your day." Olivia laughed. "Let us say June. That gives us a couple of months to make arrangements and for you to close the deal on the land. I want to start our married life in our own home, not in a boarding house." "June it is," Everett agreed. They were married on a beautiful Saturday in early June of 1883 in the small church in Kelton. Mrs. Perkins stood up as Olivia's witness, and Jacob Harrison served as Everett's. The whole town turned out for the wedding, packing the church to capacity, and afterward there was a celebration in the town square with music and dancing and food. As Everett danced with his new wife under the stars, he thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. He thought about finding her broken and beaten behind the livery stable, thought about the long months of healing and fighting and falling in love. It had not been easy, and there had been times when he was not sure they would make it. But standing here now, with Olivia smiling up at him, her face glowing with happiness, he knew that every struggle had been worth it. "What are you thinking about?" Olivia asked, her arms around his neck. "How lucky I am," Everett said honestly, "and how much I love you." "I love you too," Olivia said, standing on her toes to kiss him. "Forever and always." The house Everett built on the land near the river was modest but solid, with 2 bedrooms, a large kitchen, and a porch that wrapped around 3 sides. Olivia planted a garden, just like she had dreamed, and they started with a few cattle and some chickens. It was hard work, building a ranch from scratch, but they did it together, and that made all the difference. In the spring of 1884, Olivia announced that she was pregnant. Everett was overjoyed, though he was also terrified. He knew that childbirth was dangerous, and the thought of losing Olivia was almost more than he could bear. But Olivia was strong and healthy, and when their son was born in December of that year, it was a relatively easy delivery. They named him Thomas, after Everett's father, and he was a beautiful baby with his mother's green eyes and his father's light brown hair. Everett had never felt love like he did when he held his son for the first time, this tiny, perfect human that he and Olivia had created together. 2 years later, they had another son, whom they named Samuel, and 2 years after that, a daughter named Rose joined the family. The house that had seemed spacious for just the 2 of them suddenly felt small, so Everett added on 2 more bedrooms and expanded the kitchen. The ranch thrived under their hard work. Everett proved to have a knack for breeding cattle, and their herd grew steadily. Olivia's garden expanded to include not just vegetables, but also fruit trees and berry bushes, and she became known in Kelton for her delicious preserves and pies. Life was not easy. There were harsh winters and dry summers, sick animals and broken equipment, but they faced it all together, as partners. Olivia never forgot where she had come from, or what she had survived. She became involved in efforts to help other women who found themselves in dangerous situations, working with Dr. Hayes and Sheriff Thompson to establish a safe house in Kelton where women could go if they needed protection from abusive husbands or fathers. It was a cause close to her heart, and Everett supported her completely, even donating money to help keep the safe house running. Years passed, and the children grew. Thomas proved to be a natural rancher, taking after his father in his love of the land and animals. Samuel was more bookish, always with his nose in a book, and eventually went to study law in Salt Lake City. Rose was a perfect blend of both her parents, strong and independent like her mother, but with her father's steady calm. On a warm summer evening in 1900, Everett and Olivia sat on their porch, watching the sun set over their land. Their children were grown now, Thomas running the ranch with his father, Samuel practicing law in Salt Lake City, and Rose teaching at the school in Kelton. They had built a good life together, one filled with love and hard work and purpose. "Do you ever think about that day?" Olivia asked, her hand in Everett's. "The day you found me behind the livery stable?" "Sometimes," Everett admitted. "It feels like a lifetime ago now." "It does," Olivia agreed. "But I still remember how terrified I was, how hopeless. And then you came along and saved me." "We saved each other," Everett said, squeezing her hand. "You gave my life meaning, Olivia. You and our children are everything to me." Olivia leaned her head on his shoulder, just as she had done countless times over the years. "I love you, Everett Cole," she said. "Thank you for being my hero." "I love you too," Everett said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. Always and forever. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of pink and orange, they sat together in comfortable silence, two people who had found each other in the darkest of times and built a beautiful life together. The ranch stretched out before them, a testament to their hard work and dedication. Inside the house, they could hear Thomas talking to his wife about the new foal that had been born that morning, and in the distance, the cattle lowed softly as they settled down for the night. It was a simple life, but it was theirs, built on a foundation of love and trust and mutual respect. Everett thought back to that young man who had found a broken woman behind a livery stable 18 years ago, and he marveled at how much had changed. That decision to help a stranger had altered the course of his entire life, bringing him more joy and fulfillment than he could have ever imagined. "Do you have any regrets?" Olivia asked suddenly, as if reading his thoughts. "Not a single one," Everett said without hesitation. "Do you?" Olivia was quiet for a moment, then said, "I regret that I wasted 2 years of my life with Clarence. But if I had not gone through that, I never would have ended up here with you. So, in a way, even that led to something good. You are the strongest person I know," Everett said. "What you survived, what you overcame, it is incredible. And the way you have used your experience to help other women, that takes real courage." "I learned courage from you," Olivia said. "You showed me that it is okay to stand up for yourself, that you do not have to accept cruelty and abuse. You taught me what love really looks like." They sat there until the stars came out, talking and laughing and reminiscing about the years they had shared. When they finally went inside, it was with the satisfaction of people who had lived well and loved deeply, who had faced challenges and emerged stronger, who had built something lasting and beautiful together. The next morning, Everett woke early as he always did and lay there for a moment watching Olivia sleep. Even after 18 years of marriage, he still marveled that she was his, that this incredible woman had chosen to spend her life with him. Her dark hair was threaded with silver now, and there were lines around her eyes and mouth from years of smiling and laughing. To Everett, she had never been more beautiful. As if sensing his gaze, Olivia opened her eyes and smiled at him. "Good morning," she said, her voice still rough with sleep. "Good morning," Everett replied, leaning over to kiss her. "I love you." "I love you too," Olivia said, reaching up to cup his face. "Now come on, we have work to do. Those cattle are not going to feed themselves." They got up and started their day, falling into the familiar rhythm of chores and responsibilities. Thomas joined them for breakfast, along with his wife Margaret and their 2 young sons, Everett's grandchildren. The table was loud and chaotic, filled with laughter and conversation, and Everett felt his heart swell with contentment. This was what he had worked for, what he had dreamed of all those years ago when he was just a young man drifting from ranch to ranch. A family, a home, a legacy. And it had all started with one decision, one moment of compassion when he chose to help a stranger in need. Later that day, as Everett was out checking the fence line, he saw a rider approaching from town. As the figure got closer, he recognized Sheriff Thompson, or rather, former Sheriff Thompson. David had retired 2 years ago, handing over his badge to a younger man, but he still lived in Kelton and remained a good friend. "David," Everett greeted him, tipping his hat. "What brings you out this way?" "Got some news I thought you and Olivia should hear," David said, dismounting. "Clarence Vance is dead." Everett felt a jolt of surprise. He had not heard Clarence's name in years, had honestly almost forgotten the man existed. "What happened?" "Got into a fight in a saloon in Ogden a few days ago. Pulled a knife on the wrong man and ended up on the receiving end of a bullet. I only heard about it because the marshal in Ogden recognized his name and remembered the divorce case from years back. He thought Olivia might want to know." "I appreciate you coming all the way out here to tell us," Everett said. "I will let Olivia know." David remounted his horse, then paused. "You know, I have been thinking a lot lately about that day you brought Olivia into my office. I was not sure at the time that we would be able to help her, that the law would be on our side. But you did not let that stop you. You fought for her, protected her, loved her. You are a good man, Everett Cole, and I am proud to call you a friend." "Thank you, David," Everett said, his throat suddenly tight. "That means a lot." After David left, Everett rode back to the house to tell Olivia the news. He found her in the garden, picking tomatoes. And when he told her about Clarence, she went very still. "He is really gone?" she asked quietly. "He is," Everett confirmed. "Are you all right?" Olivia set down her basket of tomatoes and looked at Everett. "I think I am," she said slowly. "I have not thought about Clarence in so long. He stopped being real to me years ago, just a bad memory that I locked away. Learning that he is dead, it does not really change anything for me. I moved on from him a long time ago." "That is good," Everett said, pulling her into his arms. "That is really good, Olivia." She hugged him back, then pulled away with a smile. "You know what? I think we should have a party. Invite the neighbors, have some music and dancing, celebrate this beautiful life we have built. What do you say?" "I say that sounds perfect," Everett agreed. They hosted the party the following Saturday, and it was a grand affair. Friends and neighbors came from all over the area, bringing food and drink and instruments. Children ran around playing games while the adults talked and laughed. Thomas and Margaret danced with their sons, teaching them the steps. Even Samuel made the trip from Salt Lake City, bringing with him a woman he was courting, a smart and pretty schoolteacher named Clara. As the sun set and the lanterns were lit, Everett and Olivia danced together under the stars, just as they had on their wedding night 17 years ago. The music swelled around them, and Everett pulled Olivia close, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. "This is everything I ever wanted," Olivia said softly. "A home, a family, a man who loves me. I am so grateful for all of it, and for you most of all." "We have been blessed," Everett agreed. "And we earned it through hard work and perseverance and love. I am proud of what we have built together." "So am I," Olivia said, looking up at him with shining eyes. "So am I." The years continued to pass, marked by the changing of the seasons and the milestones of their family. Samuel married Clara, and they had 3 children of their own. Rose married a rancher from a neighboring property, a kind young man named Henry, and they added 2 more grandchildren to the growing family. Thomas and Margaret had 2 more children, daughters who were the spitting image of their grandmother Olivia. Everett and Olivia grew older together, their hair turning gray, their faces weathering with age. But their love never dimmed. If anything, it grew stronger with each passing year, deepened by shared experiences and mutual respect. They had built something lasting, something that would outlive them both. On their 35th wedding anniversary in 1918, their children and grandchildren threw them a massive celebration at the ranch. 3 generations of the Cole family gathered together, filling the house and spilling out onto the porch and into the yard. There was food and music and laughter, and as Everett looked around at all the faces, he felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "Speech! Speech!" Thomas called out, and the rest of the family picked up the chant. Everett stood up, pulling Olivia up beside him, and waited for the noise to die down. When everyone was quiet, he looked around at all the expectant faces and said, "I am not much for speeches, as you all know, but I want to say this. 35 years ago, I married the most incredible woman I have ever known. Together, we built this ranch, raised 3 amazing children, and created a family that I am proud to be part of. Every good thing in my life has come from the decision I made to help Olivia when she needed it most. She has made me a better man, a better father, and a better person. I love you, Olivia Cole, with everything I am." There was not a dry eye in the crowd as Everett sat back down, and Olivia kissed him, not caring that they had an audience. "I love you too," she whispered, "forever and always." The party continued late into the night, and when everyone had finally gone home or fallen asleep in various rooms throughout the house, Everett and Olivia sat on their porch once more, looking out at the land they had made their own. "Do you remember what I said I wanted that day on the porch of the boarding house?" Olivia asked. "When you asked me what I would do if I could do anything. You said you wanted a home where you felt safe and loved, where you could grow a garden and raise chickens," Everett recalled. "Simple things." "I got all of that and so much more," Olivia said. "I got you and our children and this beautiful life. I could not have dreamed it would turn out this well." "Neither could I," Everett admitted, "but I am grateful every single day that it did." They sat there in comfortable silence, 2 people who had weathered storms and celebrated triumphs, who had loved each other through everything life had thrown at them. The ranch was quiet now, settled down for the night, and in the distance a coyote howled at the moon. "What do you think happens next?" Olivia asked suddenly. "What do you mean?" "After us, after we are gone. Do you think the ranch will stay in the family? Do you think our grandchildren will tell their grandchildren about us? I think as long as we have built something worth remembering, we will be remembered, Everett said. And I think we have built something pretty special here. We have, Olivia agreed. We really have. In the end, that was all anyone could ask for. A life well lived, a family well loved, and a legacy worth leaving behind. Everett and Olivia Cole had all of that and more, built from the ashes of tragedy and pain, forged in the fires of determination and love. As they finally headed inside for the night, Everett took one last look at the stars, sending up a silent prayer of thanks for the day he had walked around the side of that livery stable and found a woman who needed help. That single decision had changed everything, had set him on a path that led to more joy and fulfillment than he could have ever imagined. He closed the door behind them, shutting out the night, and followed Olivia to their bedroom. They got ready for bed in the familiar dance of a couple who had been together for decades, then climbed under the quilts that Olivia had made with her own hands. "Good night, my love," Everett said, pulling her close. "Good night," Olivia replied, nestling against him. And as they drifted off to sleep, safe and warm and loved, the ranch settled around them, a testament to what two people could build together when they chose love over fear, hope over despair, and compassion over indifference. It was a legacy that would endure long after they were gone, passed down through generations, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was always light to be found if you were brave enough to look for it.